Today I tackle one of my least enjoyed movies of the year so far, Spider-Man Far From Home, which I label in the title of my video the worst Spider-Man ever made. Worse than Spider-Man 3? I think it really does have competition now. Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3 was a mess of a movie that had lots of strange attempts at humor and had very odd performances, and plot was a little bit messy in places. But Far From Home to me is a different kind of bad. Forces a lot of really terrible humor. Every 15 seconds, every second line is an attempt at humor, which might be okay if I laughed, and I think I might have laughed once at a pretty funny Led Zeppelin joke. John Watts directed this movie. Guy hasn't directed a lot of movies that I looked through that I know of anyway. He did direct Homecoming, and this is, if you liked Homecoming, you're probably gonna like this, but I didn't like Homecoming. It stars Tom Holland. You got Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. People watching this video probably know the plot of the movie. Mysterio is and Spider-Man are helping each other out. There may be spoilers in this review, this discussion. So if you don't want spoilers for the movie, don't watch any further. I didn't enjoy Far From Home. I like some moments. There's some of Mysterio's special effects moments were pretty cool, where he was spoilers ahead, he was trying to kind of trick and use illusions to get the best of Spider-Man. You know, some of the action scenes were pretty well made, but the problem with the movie is that there's absolutely no stakes in the movie, no dramatic or emotional depth to it, because it doesn't really care about having emotional beats, having dramatic moments, because it's more of a comedy. You know, as much as Thor Ragnarok was a comedy movie, this is pretty much maybe not as silly as Ragnarok, but it's definitely a comedy. You know, you look at Spider-Man 1 and 2, or you look at The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, those movies had humor throughout, but you definitely wouldn't call them comedies. I think Far From Home, even more so than Homecoming, lots of humor, very kind of, I don't know what you describe it. I describe it as a little bit like Spider-Man Nickelodeon. You know, it's like one of those Drake and Josh kind of mid-afternoon Disney show type of things. Disney, Nickelodeon, I can't tell the difference. But it's like one of those kind of, everything's kind of childish humor. The director, Watts, and the actors, I think they think it's a lot more entertaining and endearing than it is. I didn't find it funny, except for the Led Zeppelin joke, which was actually pretty funny. But you got such range here to do something good. You got Jake Gyllenhaal, who is actually very good as Mysterio with what he's got to work with. Not as good as Michael Keaton in Homecoming. Tom Holland, I think, could be a good Spider-Man, but he's given kind of just a paper-thin character to utilize in these movies, and he's nowhere near as good as Maguire or even Garfield, who some people don't rate as a good Spider-Man. I mean, you got the annoying friend character back from the first movie, who I think is a completely unnecessary character, played by Jacob Batalon, who's Ned. You've got you got Martin Starr from Freaks and Geeks as their teacher, principal. I don't know what he is, teacher, I think. He keeps interrupting the movie with attempts at humor. I did actually like Starr in Freaks and Geeks, but he's pretty terrible in this. You got J.B. Smoove, who is, I think, is another teacher. His attempts at humor aren't good, and he's usually brilliant in Curb Your Enthusiasm and others. You know, the attempts at humor would have been grand if it had been funny, but I didn't find any of it funny, and I struggle to think of anybody really laughing hard at this movie. So when you're attempting humor that doesn't hit, it just gets more awkward and depressing the longer it goes. The plot's a bit of a mess. You feel like the plot's kind of secondary, that they don't really care about the whole Mysterio plot arc. They don't really his motives are a bit of a muddle. I didn't find the Mysterio character to be fleshed out, his motives to really make that much sense. It's just kind of there to have some cool effects. The school subplot of them going around a trip, and then there's a scene where Spider-Man nearly kills all the students in the bus because he's jealous of MJ's this dude that's trying to hit on MJ, and it's kind of more like a Austin Powers or Naked Gun type of scene. It's just so kind of farcical and over the top and silly. Like everything after that, like by the end of the movie when the kids are in danger again, you don't really care. You just, because they keep making jokes, it's just all a bit of a light-hearted, if that's what you like, then okay, but I expect a little bit more from the Spider-Man movie. You look at the Sam Raimi 1 and 2, and even the two Amazing Spider-Man movies, there was real emotional stakes. Characters died. When Uncle Ben died, that's a really good scene. Or even when Gwen Stacy dies in Amazing Spider-Man 2, that's a really powerful scene. Spider-Man Homecoming has none of that, and if it attempted to do anything like that, I don't think anybody would really get emotionally invested in it, because it's just all so light-hearted, silly, kind of bordering on a parody, kind of an SNL type of stuff. I don't know what to describe it, because I just think it's so poorly judged. But you look at the box office, you look at the critic reviews, I looked at it briefly on Twitter, and people are loving it, and I just wonder, is this really what people want from the Spider-Man? Obviously it is, if it's been one of the most successful ones in several years. So maybe I'm out of touch, maybe it's me that is the problem, but I just wonder, do people really like this? Do people really enjoy a Spider-Man movie with no emotional stakes, with kind of paper thin characters? Aunt May is given nothing to do. MJ, could be an interesting character, but is given nothing to do. Friend, the principal, the teacher guy, they're all kind of paper thin comedy parts. You compare those characters to Harry Osborn, and you compare William Dafoe, which was a really terrific villain. You compare Aunt May in the first two Sam Raimi movies, who was a really fleshed out and believable, serious character. And Marissa Tomei is a terrific actor, but she's given nothing to do. She's sort of just a kind of a silly side character that does nothing. You got Jon Favreau trying to be even more comedy relief. Doesn't really land. He was good in his small parts in the other Iron Man movies. So the movie is, for me, I didn't like the tone. It had that light-hearted tone. Most people seem to be liking it. I'm not really sure why. But did you like Far From Home? Could you see any of my points? Do you agree with them? I think it's possibly the worst Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man 3 was bad, but it had some really good points, and its attempts at actually making you get invested, like the Sandman finale in Spider-Man 3, I still think holds up as a really good scene. There's none of that here. It's just a light-hearted kids Spider-Man. This is kind of like I would call it a big budget Nickelodeon version of Spider-Man, which isn't something I want to see from Spider-Man movies. What did you think? Thanks for watching.